It says we're preparing to go live here. It says we're preparing to go live here. Can you guys hear me? It says we're preparing to go live.
Yeah.
Today, the Reds were the first team in MLB history to lose despite hitting 6+ homers and having a starting pitcher allow 2 runs or fewer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Today, the Reds were the first team in MLB history to lose despite hitting 6+ homers and having a starting pitcher allow 2 runs or fewer.
Okay. All right, I got to mess with something here. No. Okay, you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, it was like doing both, and I could hear like everybody at the same time here. We're real professional here, as you can tell, Matt.
Oh, it's all right.
We're all art
Happy for the
majors.
invite. I appreciate it.
Yes, that's nice. Chris, this is a nice guy. I don't know why you're telling me. Who knows? He's kind of difficult.
Yeah. I try to share all of his and Russ's work. I enjoy a lot of their stuff they put out. And
You just told me and Brad to put them on post approval, not to.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate what you guys do. It definitely helps, and it's always fun to see what people comment on our page versus what they comment on your page. And
It can get kind of brutal with some of the people's opinions.
yeah, it's all fun.
Yeah. Jared, what are you over doing? Performing surgery or something?
I'm sharing all the link to Facebook and stuff. Can you get off when I ask for a second, boss?
Well, I didn't know. You said it wouldn't let you do that.
I can do it on the group, not the page. The page is not the same. Why you always see what we deal with here, Matt?
Yeah, I'm cracking the whip.
Russ said something's not working. Tell them to move on without me. I just told him keep working on it because we're working on stuff too.
Hey, usually Zoom's pretty easy.
That's what I said. I said if you click the link in the email, it should open it right up, even if you don't have the app.
You don't even need an account. I think it just says like type in your name and you're all set.
Yeah.
I can't post a link to the on the page. I got it in the group. I don't know what the hell's going on with the page. It's Christopher.
Well, one of my friends is tuning in.
Who was that? Who said that?
Well, one of my friends is tuning in already.
Your mom? Your friend? What?
My friend.
Hi, Mom. One of my good friends. I love you too, Mom. Just kidding. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Might as well here. Okay, hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Cardinals Nation 24/7 coming to you live here on YouTube. Conversation with the nation. It's meant to be a roundtable type format, and also we take questions and topic suggestions from everyone out there watching, whether you're tuning in from YouTube or from our link on our Facebook group. We appreciate you stopping in. Send us a message if you want, and I'll do my best to get to it and pose the question to the guys here at the roundtable. So That being said, Chris, I'll turn it over to you. Introduce yourself and help introduce our guests.
Well, I'm Chris Lellis, co-host of the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. Founded the page with Jarrad a few years ago and our group. And tonight we've got Brad Kehl, who's the moderator in our group, as well as a writer for Arch City Media, and Matt Graves, a writer for Redbird Rants, joining us. So welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Brad, tell everyone real quick, people join in and for playback watch later, we're going to upload this so it's available for view afterwards, but tell everybody where they can find you at.
I've been writing on Arch City Media. I post most of my articles on Twitter, which is at Brad Kehl. Haven't wrote much this month, but gonna start getting back in the swing of things. I focus a lot on mainly Cardinals, and then I do all MLB. Like last month, I previewed all 30 major league teams, and that was fun to do. Got all sorts of information with that. So Arch City Media, they're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you can think of, at Arch City Media.
Yeah, I read a lot of your previews for a lot of the teams. I didn't read all 30, to be honest with you, but I read several of them, and it was actually some really good stuff. And I did read a lot of your articles on a lot of the teams I'm not familiar with myself, so it was good stuff. So
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. Hope to see you writing again real soon. Matt, where can everybody find you and the work that you're doing?
Well, I've been the expert and co-expert on and off at Redbird Rants for about 2 years now. And same thing as Arch City Media. It's just at FS Redbird Rants on Twitter, and then Redbird Rants on Facebook. And we put out a lot of stuff. Right now, we've currently got Robert Murray helping us out, former Athletic writer. He's covering a lot more than news stuff, but he is being indoctrinated into Cardinals fandom very quickly.
Awesome. Can you describe what you mean by Cardinals fandom?
Just there's been times where our Redbird Rants group is talking a lot about certain things, and just the way people react to stuff. He's like, "Wow, you guys are really crazy, aren't you?" We're like, a little bit, but
yeah, I think
it's the word we prefer, but
passionate. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say beforehand. Yeah, we have a lot of very passionate fans in Cardinals Nation. Yeah. Educated fans is what the sports people say, but sometimes makes me wonder. But guys, it's been an interesting start to the season so far. We come in today with an off day, finding ourselves to be in last place in the National League Central. And whenever all these different, sports media outlets were coming out with their ranking predictions earlier in the year, people were very upset that the Cardinals weren't projected to easily win the division. And now we're at the bottom. It is 1 month in, but definitely, Chris, it's not where you'd expect us to be ending the month of April.
No, and we've talked before that, it is early. And when you see teams like the Mariners have kind of got off to a hot start, and the Yankees are at the bottom of their division, it's not really room to panic, but there has been some red flags with this team that has showed some early concern. I know we'll get into that, this show, but it is early, and I don't want to hit the panic button too soon, but there's a lot to take in the time that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, Brad, what would you say is a couple of things that maybe the team needs to improve on in order to try to work itself out of this last place position they find themselves in?
I mean, where do you start? Our offense has been hit and miss. I mean, it's how it's been kind of the past few years.
No pun intended, or pun intended? They hit or they miss?
However you want to take it. But I mean, we score 13 runs one game and then 2 hits the next. I mean, that's how it's been for the past few years. And I'm not too overly concerned with our offense as I am with our pitching as a whole. I think the biggest issue is starters not going that deep into games. That's improved this week, it seems. I know before this week there was only one pitcher that had gone 5 innings in each of his outings. Believe it or not, it was Carlos Martinez. He was the only one through, I think, the first 3 starts to go 5 innings. Granted, they weren't that great, but I mean, he's been giving us those innings. So since they haven't been going deeper into games, that's been taxing more for our bullpen. Seems like Tyler Webb has been the early favorite. He's Chris's favorite. So I think if we can continue to improve each game, going at least 1 inning deeper, I think that should bode well to the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's been an interesting start to the season. I know a lot of people are already blaming Schilt for some miscues, as we always are quick to point the blame finger in Cardinals Nation, it feels like. But Matt, what would you say the big key is? I know everyone was talking about 5 innings, and we've talked about it recently before, how, our starters got to go deeper into games. And we just had a couple of really good outings, one from Wainwright, one from Martinez, and we didn't seem to pull out the victory, though the second one was a close game. I would rather lose close than by a large margin. But what do you think going into, now as we kind of reset here, hopefully, what do you think the Cardinals need to work on, in your opinion, to try to get themselves back to the 500 hump and in the plus column?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what you guys have already said of continuing on this consistency that we've seen recently from the starters. I think it was 8 runs allowed total in the National Series, and in any series, if you do that, it's going to end up well most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting to think about why they aren't offensively consistent, because they have a good offense. I mean, you see it when they blow up, that everybody's hitting and it's contagious, but it must be the same way. And I think that's really a big key. Love it or hate it, I think getting back O'Neill and Bader is going to help, because at least in the mean place, Justin Williams had a few good games. Austin Deans have some good moments, but and Carlson's been fine in center. But if you can put Bader back out there and at least make sure that you're really good at preventing runs, then I think that'll help other things, even if you're not getting any better offensively than what you already had. And I'm forever going to be a Tyler O'Neill fan and believer, even if he looked awful before he got hurt. So getting healthy, I think, will help.
Yeah, and going into the season, we said we're going to have like one of the best defensive outfields, and now we have Carlson up position, and O'Neill and Bader have both been injured. And the thing with Bader is, I'm kind of maybe, I don't want to say glad he was hurt, because we never want a player to get hurt, no matter. But I'm kind of glad that he hasn't been in the lineup, just so fans can see. People always want to pick a scapegoat, and though he doesn't hit, he's an excellent defender. He's one of the best defenders in the major leagues as far as playing the center field position. And we've had some defensive, lapses in the outfield, and we have several players on the team that are hitting well, and then the bottom half are all hitting 200. Even Williams, until of late, was in that same category. So when you have a bottom half of the order, and that's why I always said, I felt like Bader got a bad rap, is because, whenever you have, a lot of players hitting 200s, it's more of an emphasis because people aren't hitting. It's like having 4 pitchers come up. But if everyone else is hitting well, you can put 1 or 2 guys hitting 200 in the lineup, and it's not a big deal. But whenever you have so many, people just like to, point a finger. But coming back to you, Brad, with that, how about can you give us a little injury update on O'Neill, Bader, and Mikolas, and what seems to be going on with them currently?
Yeah. O'Neill's supposed to be back tomorrow. I haven't heard if that's going to be official or not. But he's supposed to be returning tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if he's thrown right back into the lineup. I would assume he would be back in left field, and then Justin Williams will be in right. Kind of similar to our opening day lineup. So, I mean, hopefully he's back ready to go. I did read that he hit 2 home runs in one of his simulated games earlier this week. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Harrison Bader, earlier this week, or I think it was last week actually, he was cleared for live BP, but he's still probably about a week away or so for full on baseball activities. So he's getting there. I think when he originally went down, it was about 4 to 6 weeks. So we're getting to that timetable now. So I would think he'd be back here in the next few weeks. And his return will definitely help the outfield defense. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And then Miles Michaelis, kind of the same thing earlier this week. He threw live BP. I think that was Monday. He did that, but strictly fastballs, changeups. So he's progressing. He'll probably do 1, maybe 2 more live BP sessions to mix in the breaking balls, and then he'll start in with the rehab assignments. So he'll be back here in the next few weeks as well.
Yeah. Other way, it's good news to see some of these guys start to come on the mend and come back. I'd like having O'Neill in the lineup just for the potential he has. You know, he's one of those guys kind of like Grichuk to me. I don't care if he bats 220 to 260. It's just the ability of what he can do, and then having a plus defender in the outfield is kind of nice. Unfortunately for Lane Thomas, he had a couple of miscues which cut his time short. But Chris, we got guys coming back. Obviously, it's good news to get some plus defenders back in the outfield, but who's the odd man to say now? You got to figure it's probably going to be Hurst in short sample, which makes the promotion of him that much more confusing.
Yeah, I was confused on why he got the call up. I mean, I know Lane Thomas kind of had some struggles, but yeah, I was just a little surprised, especially with Nagowski making the team and not getting one start yet, why they would go to Hurst, you know. But I'm excited to have O'Neill back and Bader too when he returns. But just as exciting as it is to have those guys back, I think it's nice that it'll push Edman back to second base and put Carp back on the bench. And that's in no way trying to jab at Carpenter, but I do want to see Edman getting everyday playing time at second base and getting those outfielders having the repertoire with each other that we want to see. You know, they do have Carlson in center field. That's not really his primary position. So if you can slide him back to right field, Bader in center, and O'Neill, they can be clicking on all cylinders. I think that's going to be a good outfield. Just need to get consistent at bats. And yeah, like I said, having Edman back at second base is going to be what I'm most excited to see.
And do you think Edman's going to be back at second base, or do you think Carp's still going to be ran out there a lot and Edman's going to be your de facto right fielder and Williams goes to the bench? That's what I'm afraid we're going to see the most of coming up in May.
I know we've talked and said that Carpenter was going to get the month of April, and if the struggles continued, there would be a short leash. I can't imagine this experiment continuing to go on much into May if he's still not hitting. Giving him some at bats, you know, here and there, or maybe a spot start, I can see, but you can't keep justifying having him in the lineup. You know, as you mentioned with Bader and others, that when you have multiple 200 hitters, that's really detrimental to the team. When Carpenter's not even batting at 100 clip, you know, there's no reason. You can't say that Sosa doesn't deserve a spot start. You know, you just got to give the guy a day off.
Yeah, Matt, let me ask you too, whenever Hurst was promoted and added to the 40-man roster, was that a surprise move for you as well?
Yeah, it's always a surprise, but it always seems like they find a guy who maybe they draw from a card, like just randomly. That always seems to come up and get that devil magic play of the year for about a month or two. That hasn't happened with Hurst, but I almost think, and this is not a super original thought, but I almost think that it was as much a message to Lane Thomas as it was a compliment to Scott Hurst, because, I mean, you can look around at Scott Hurst numbers and they weren't anything special, but he was a top pick in the draft. It might have been a third round pick, but he was a top pick. It was surprising. I really haven't seen him do much because all of his stuff's been pinch running, pinch hitting, one at bat late in a game. I agree that he's probably the one to leave. But on Matt Carpenter for a second. So he's batting 081 right now, which is definitely not acceptable. But I want to run it by you guys because it's something I looked up. I haven't written anything on it yet, but the closest comp that I could find to a player like Carpenter, who is a former All-Star with the team, former, I guess, lineup corner piece would fit for both of these guys, but then fell off a cliff, would be Johnny Peralta. Have you guys looked into his 2017 at all very much? Because I think that's a good, obviously
Not in a while. Not in a while. I know it was bad before he got DFA'd, but
yeah. So he started the year as our cleanup batter out of the gate. And then it was, I think, June 6th, they finally pulled the plug and he was batting 205. And I mean, there's differences there where Carpenter's been with them longer. He's been better, but also he's been worse for longer. So I just thought, I was searching the other day around, just bored, looking for some sort of comp for former really good player in the last year of his deal. What have they done in the past? And I can't think of anyone else who's even close to the same situation other than Johnny Peralta. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think Peralta, like you said, and before Peralta got bad, Peralta was really good for a short period of time we had him. I mean, I think he might have set the home run record for a shortstop, if I'm not mistaken.
Before Dion, yeah, I think so.
The only other, and that was 1 year, and the only other person I can think of, Matt, that'd be close, since you asked for opinion, would be Alan Craig before we traded him, because he really fell off, but that wasn't even a long period of time. That was 1 year and he was traded, but now Carp is in year 3. So no, that's a good question. I can't think of anyone else other than the Peralta thing. I do remember we talked about him at the beginning of the year because of the money factor, but that's a good comparison. I don't know, Chris.
No, I can't think of any. And, again, it's not the bag on Matt Carpenter. I think everybody here wants him to succeed. We all know what he's done for the organization, played every position that they've asked and done everything he can. He's just been in a 2.5-year slump and it's not getting any better. And when I read some of these articles, and it's not to negate some of the positives people try to put out there of the exit velocity and the hard hit balls. And I put a post out the other day that was like, if I hit the ball harder than any major league player 100 times, but I got out 100 times, does it really matter what my exit velocity is? I mean, I know you want to look for some good, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you're not producing, you're hurting the team. And I think it's going to be a tough call for the Cardinals to have with Carpenter, especially given his history with the team and him being such a likable guy. I mean, he's a fan favorite. I know you couldn't tell sometimes in our Cardinals Nation 24/7 group that he's a fan favorite, but everybody is pulling for the guy. It's hard to watch. You run the same guy out there consistently expecting different results, and it's just not happening.
Yeah, Brad, what about you?
I mean, I like the Peralta comp. I mean, he was even an all-star for us, I think, in 2015. I mean, the year before he really started getting bad. And, I mean, like you said, Alan Craig, and even if you look at the pitchers, I mean, we've let go of Brett Cecil. Who else? Who was the closer that Greg Holland.
Yeah.
That was a fun experiment. And then Lou Gregerson, he was also a higher name guy that we signed that didn't really do much. And I mean, I like Carpenter. I mean, he's definitely that fan favorite, but it's getting to the point where it might be time to let him go.
I think that's
Oh, sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Matt. No, you got it.
I was just say that's the beautiful thing about it is how do you weight all the different factors, because you name all those people and those are all good examples, but none of them were Matt Carpenter. I mean, even still in his career, he's got an 824 OPS. I know that was a long time ago, but if
he's had a really bad few years to still keep that high, I get your point. Yeah.
And I mean, the word is always should with the whole exit velocity thing, and the law of averages comes after everybody, in both good and bad. And there should be some positive regression coming for Carpenter. But if it never comes, then when do you pull the plug? When do you look away? I mean, I remember, especially when people are talking about Ozuna when he was here and when he wasn't. I remember it was the first time I'd heard it when we traded for him. It was the first time I ever heard somebody call a player a StatCast darling. It's because for years he had always hit the snot out of the ball and had all these great expected numbers, but had never found it, other than 2017 when he had his career year. And then even with us, he was still hitting the ball really well, but it just wasn't happening. And that's the fun thing with luck and numbers is you never know when the should is actually going to happen or when it's never going to happen.
It's kind of like you said, it's funny you bring up Ozuna. It's kind of like after he got here, right? And everybody was talking about numbers. It's like, how did the guy ever win a gold glove, right? Everyone was so confused about his defense and how it was so good. How did he ever win a gold glove?
That's still a great mystery.
Yeah. I still love him climbing the wall. He hit a fly ball to left field. He's climbing that damn thing. It was hilarious. Chris, and that brings us to another point. You've been heavy on it with the big Nagowski. Carp's another guy. They even said at the beginning of the year, Schultz said that Nagowski, you could not put him on the team, but I guess you can put him on the team and then not play him.
Yeah, that's what we've seen, and I don't understand it. I mean, I get it that he's not an outfielder. That's just something they wanted to experiment with, getting him into the game and getting some at-bats. He's not going to play over a Goldschmidt or really needing to have a backup first baseman when Carpenter could slide in and cover that if need be. But to have the hot spring that he's had, and really his whole minor league career, he's done well at getting on base. I can't imagine putting him on the roster and then just letting his bat go cold. It's hard to keep your bat hot when you just pinch hit, and sometimes in meaningless spots. But when Dean and Williams were kind of going through their 0 for 19 spell, that's a game you could have put Nagowski out there to get 4 or 5 at bats. I would like to see it still, while he's on the team, get a fair shake before sending him to the alternate side or down, is to give him a game or two in the outfield. And if you're going to do it, I mean, with O'Neill coming back, now would be the time to maybe do it, because Bader will be right behind him rejoining the team soon. So, yeah, if you're going to give him a shot, I'd say it ain't going to hurt anything to put him out there for a game or two.
Yeah, I mean, what about you, Matt? What is your take on Nagowski? Why have we not seen him start yet?
I don't know. I love the type of leader that Mike Schilt is, and I think it's easy to do this with every manager because going to school down in Auburn, 2 hours away from Atlanta, I've had the privilege of being around a lot of Braves fans. They have very similar gripes about Brian Snitker, and you can never be perfect as a manager. There's always seemingly going to be somebody who gets forgotten about. I mean, I'm a little younger, but I don't know if I can name a time when there wasn't at least one person that was kind of forgotten about. But I say if you can live with Austin Dean's defense out in left field, you can live with Nagowski's, because there's been times, especially spring training a little earlier in the season, where he's looked a little afraid of the ball out there. And I mean, not that I could do any better, but I think I agree. I don't know why he hasn't been given at least a little bit of a chance.
Yeah, I mean, Brad, you got to think it's a little bit interesting because, Nagowski was our best hitter in the spring. He forced his way onto the team. And yet we see Matt Carpenter, who last time I checked, he just got a few less at bats than our traditional starters of Arenado, and Goldie missed a game with a tight back, and Molina. But Carp's right up there with the rest of them. And Nagowski's been, relegated to pinch hitting opportunities. Why do you think they have, we lost Chris, but why do you think Nagowski hasn't made a start and they keep running Carp out? Whenever offense has been in need until recent, you would think they'd want to try to put a strong hitter out there.
Right. I mean, I think it goes back to kind of giving Carp as much bats as possible with that leash that they have. I mean, I would have thought that they'd give Goldie a day off besides that home opener where he had, I think it was back tightness, where they gave Carpenter, I think that started first. But I would have thought they give Goldie a day off here or there. I mean, it's still early, but you do want to keep him fresh. And I would have thought Nagowski would have been one to kind of fill in.
Get that start at first base. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is his natural position. And so, I mean, he's not going to get a whole lot of time there unless, I mean, heaven forbid, Goldie goes down, or, I mean, just giving him that day off.
Yeah. And I don't know. I hope they continue to piece together. I'm kind of glad they moved the batting order around a little bit and have Carlson higher up in the order instead of near the bottom with his high OPS. But rotation has looked a little better the last couple of outings, obviously, with Waino and Martinez going a bit longer. And now there's talk of a 6-man rotation, Matt and Oviedo possibly getting some starts. What are your thoughts on a potential 6-man rotation? Do you like it or not? And your thoughts on Oviedo? I for one, am a fan and wish he was starting sooner.
Yeah, I love Oviedo. He looked a little raw last year, and in his first start this year, he looked like he was tightening up that command a little bit, especially given the complete lack of warning that he had that he was going to be in the game. I mean, scheduled to pitch in a simulated game earlier in the day, and then all of a sudden he's in St. Louis throwing in a game in the third inning that he didn't know he was going to be in. I think the 6-man rotation is the perennial fad diet of the MLB, where every year spring training, it's like, oh, which team's going to do the 6-man rotation? Is the Rays? The Cardinals have 5 aces. They can do a 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
And then when you really get down to brass tacks, either someone's not going to be good enough to stick in the rotation, someone's going to get hurt, or when you get down to it, do you really want Jack Flaherty starting not once every 5 days and once every 6 days instead? Does that really give you a better chance of winning, even if Oviedo is better? I think it's a fine idea on paper, and I think it's a fun idea in spring when you can dream of everyone hitting way above their projections and all that fun stuff. But just like after the first week of doing keto, I don't think it works out long term.
Yeah, I thought about doing that diet, but I'm already super in great shape. So you can't tell because the shirt's loose, but I'm super great shape. Chris, we're talking about the possible 6-man rotation that the Cardinals have discussed going to, and Oviedo has been named. He's getting a couple starts. What do you think on the 6-man rotation? I mean, our pitchers now can't go 5 innings. I don't know what adding another person to that. We'd probably need to talk about piggybacking starters together instead of adding another one to the rotation. But your thoughts on a 6-man rotation? Oviedo getting some looks would be nice, but I would just rather him replace somebody probably.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn between trying that out or not. I mean, when you have a bullpen that is full of starters that have turned into relievers, you've got the arms that could do it. I know we've talked before that Alex Reyes could be a starter. Genesis Cabrera could start. You've obviously given Ponce de Leon and Gant, opportunities. Michaelis coming back, you're going to have to slot him into the rotation. You're not quite sure what you're going to get out of Kim, easing him back. But again, if pitchers are only going 5 innings, you're taxing the bullpen as it is. I would just let it ride with the 5. I don't really see why they need to go with a 6-man. It might help a guy like Wainwright out, but I think it could hurt a guy like Flaherty, say Sharp, to give him an extra day. Again, we've got the young arms that could do it, but I'd much rather see guys like Cabrera and them thrive in the bullpen other than to just push a guy back a day.
Yeah, I think maybe whenever O'Neill's better, I think Hurst may ride out a little bit longer. I could almost see Ponce getting sent down until they're ready to call up Oviedo, depending on how many moves they make when they come back, because Ponce got that one relief appearance and was still getting shelled and hasn't looked good. So that'll probably be the corresponding move when Oviedo comes up, maybe depending on when and if they plan on doing that and going forward with it. But what are your thoughts, Brad? I mean, Oviedo's been a top prospect for us. He looked good last year. I was a little surprised that they took him out of the running for the 5th starter spot and were quick to name Ponce and Gant this year. Neither one of those guys have looked good, but in their defense, the rest of the rotation hasn't really looked that great either. Flaherty's numbers are a little deceiving, I think, of what he's being 3-0 with an under 4 ERA.
Right.
But he's got a lot of run support. What are your thoughts on six man? You think it's just gonna probably depends on how it lasts, but your thoughts?
I'm not the biggest fan of a 6-man rotation, but I mean, like Matt said, I mean, it's coming to the MLB. I mean, there's been a few teams that have kind of talked about it. I love Oviedo. He's been great. I saw him pitch when he was with Peoria, and he was electric then.
Mhm.
I think he can come in and be that kind of guy we've been looking for this spring. That kind of not necessarily lockdown, but give us those good numbers. He can strike guys out. I don't foresee him going very deep in games just yet. I mean, if he can give us 5 to begin with, that's great. I'd like him to kind of bump Gant out of the rotation, and then just have it be Flaherty, Kim, Wainwright, Martinez, and Oviedo until Michaelis gets back, and then just kind of see how we go from there. But I'm pretty high on Oviedo.
Yeah, I said from the start I would like to see Oviedo get some starts and Reyes as well. I thought they said we weren't going to name a closer. We were going to do by committee. And then, 2 games into the season, they said Reyes was going to be closing. But they also want him to pitch just over 100 innings, which whenever we're last place Central, he's not going to hit those innings because he's not going to be saving any damn games. So that's a real good strategy there by the Cardinals.
Well, speaking of the closer, they said earlier this week that they're going to start stretching out Jordan Hicks to start closing here before too long. So
that'd be nice. He's looked really good, and we don't use him.
He has.
He's looked really good, and they don't use him because it's just like the whole Reyes thing. I feel like it's kind of like how Matt was saying earlier with the whole 6-man rotation being a bit of a fad. I feel like they're too hesitant with some of these pitchers because they were injured 4 years ago. Alex Reyes is not injured now. I feel like you put him out there and see what happens, and then you make an adjustment if you need to, and you see how he adjusts. I mean, I know he's been injured a lot, but at some point in time, you have to see what you have and let these guys play instead of nursing them back. I mean, Hicks is good. Put him in the role. He's obviously not going to be pitching very often. If he needs an extra day, you put someone out there anyways. It's not rocket science. I feel like they try to overthink some things, but then again, we're here on our couches and they're in the dugout. So I guess maybe
at this point, I was gonna say at this point too, and Webb's pitched good, but he's not gonna have an arm by the end of May. I mean, it's almost like we're going back to the Matheny Bowman, love affair, and pitching him 8 days a week. And Webb has come in and got guys out, but again, as far as the lefties go, Genesis Cabrera is your multi-inning guy, and Andrew Miller doesn't really have it anymore. I think he's just he's a guy that can get a few outs, but he's not going to go more than an inning. And Webb, he's already not on the injured list, but missing time. He's wore out. He's pitched like 37 times already. It seems like
9 games out of 18 he's pitched in.
It seems like a lot more than that.
Yeah,
That's plenty.
Yeah, I know, but it does seem like a lot more than that.
Chris is just trying to find something to complain about. That's how he lives his life. He's always complaining about something. But anyone that's just joining us, we're here YouTube live, or if you're joining us from our Facebook group, we appreciate it. We're here with Matt Grace from Redbird Rants, Brad Kehl from Art City Media, and he's also with us at Cardinals Nation 24/7, a move that he probably regrets at this point, and my friend and co-host Chris Lawless. So thanks for joining us. If you have a question that you want to ask us, please drop it in the chat. We'll be glad to get to it. I know we have some people watching. I know Cardinal Cowboys watching and dropping some comments. We appreciate you tuning in. Tina Welch, whoever the hell that is, somebody Chris used to mess around with. DB Cooper, Amy Abernathy, thanks for dropping some comments. We appreciate the support. As we're going around too, we'll go back to both sides of this team being inconsistent. I want to pose the question to you, Matt. What are your thoughts so far on Paul DeYoung? I mean, he's one of those guys. He's always been streaky in the past, but I thought Arenado being on the team this year and Carlson stepping up would maybe take a little stress off of him, and we'd see his numbers bump up. But so far, that hasn't been the case. What are your thoughts on DeYoung and where he's at in the season? And obviously, Carp has kind of taken maybe some eyes off of him at this point. But your thoughts on DeYoung and maybe what might happen there, if anything?
Yeah, well, he looked really, really bad at the beginning. I think pitchers found a hole in his swing, that down and in and then out and away slider. And it was actually pretty vindicative yesterday because I wrote an article because I was just doing my morning perusing through everything I can find everywhere. And DeYoung actually had, I believe, an OPS over 1,000 in the last 5 games. And it helped that he hit those 2 home runs Monday. But I think it was 5 for 18 going into yesterday's game. And then he gets 2 more hits on 3 or 4 really good at bats where he worked 3-2 counts and then was able to get a hit a couple times. And I think it's just baby steps. I don't think maybe if it had continued to look like the way it had, then it would have been moving towards a point where you might start thinking about getting Sosa some more starts and like that. But I think he's waking up at the plate. I still wouldn't say based on the eye test he looks particularly great. But when you take out those 5 games, then it was 11 games, which is about 2 weeks worth of play. And if that bad stretch had happened in the middle of June, nobody would really be talking about it. And that's the thing I'm trying to continue to tell myself is I'm so eager to look at everything, so eager to analyze, but it's still only been 18 games. So I think he's waking up. I don't know about defensively, but he's waking up at the plate slowly.
Yeah, and speaking of that too, Chris, we've seen DeYoung, and I know you mentioned it in our little pre-show notes here. He's had a few lapses in the field that, even though DeYoung is not known as the most amazing defender, he's definitely doesn't hurt you at his position, but he's had a few mental lapses, it looks like, in the field, even an easy play that came through yesterday. So what are your thoughts so far on DeYoung? Do you think it's just putting him together? And obviously there's probably more of a focus on him with the team record being what it is. Like Matt said, you're kind of finding things to pick apart a little more because we're not where we'd like to be.
Yeah, I think, with getting Arenado, that's going to take a lot of pressure off of him, on defense. Now, granted, he has had, I believe, 4 errors already, which is not DeYoung-like. But, slotting him in the cleanup role to start the season, I know he does start off the season, fairly hot. But, that was kind of not really a role that I think he feels that comfortable with. It puts a lot of pressure on him. I think he can thrive lower in the lineup. We talked about too, would it make sense to move him up and bat him second some, so maybe he could see some better pitches to hit in front of a Goldschmidt. I think you can experiment with that when he gets a little more comfortable and consistent. You might be able to plug him in at the 2 spot on occasion. I don't think, like I said, the lineup needs to be written in ink right now. I think it can be, switching some parts around and see what works, because obviously the feast or famine with the offense, scoring 11 one game and not scoring for a couple games. You don't have to throw that same lineup out there every day. I mean, it'd be nice if you could and be able to count on guys, but having him back cleanup, I think, was kind of a mistake from the start. Slotting him down lower, I think Matt's right. I think he's, getting a little more comfortable, and, we are still early. So I know it's kind of, we like to critique on what we've seen so far, but, he's got some power in his bat. It's just a matter of making contact and, getting on base.
Yeah, me personally too. I think they've already changed the lineup a little bit, Brad, with putting Carlson higher up in the order. Carlson, excuse me. But I would like to see, possibility. And I'm a big batting order guy, and I've been complaining about it for the last couple of weeks. And they finally moved Carlson up because I didn't like the whole. They said, oh well, we'd like to. Justin Williams is going to make this team because he's a left-handed bat, and then they had Carp, Carlson, and Williams all batting in a row. And I'm like, well, you're not turning him around. I know Carlson's a switch hitter, but then when you have everyone, I would like to see at least the bats mixed up a little more, which is why they didn't want to put Carlson at number 2. But maybe O'Neill comes back and you slot O'Neill at 2. And the reason I like O'Neill at 2, he does strike out a lot, but you can't put him and DeYoung close together in the bottom of the order because they're very similar type hitters, in my opinion. But maybe if you put him second behind Edman, number one, he is also very quick. So if he does get on base, you've got some speed. And then move Goldschmidt, down a spot in the order to, maybe 3 or even 4. So you don't have to move Arenado as well. Move some things around, but then, maybe he'll get some pitches to hit, being in between Edman and Goldie. And then you've got Carlson back there. And then maybe you put, DeYoung after, because I don't like the idea of DeYoung and O'Neill together. But where do you see DeYoung fitting in? You would think he would be able to relax a little bit with some of these other players stepping up, because we do have some guys not performing. We have some other guys hitting well, which we'll get into. But what do you think DeYoung's future outlook is like for the team this year? I know you're a big Sosa fan. I think you're wearing his jersey right now.
No, I actually got Carlson on right now. I do like Sosa, but DeYoung, me personally, I have a longer leash on him. He hasn't been too great. Last year, but he's got all that power potential, and we haven't really seen this type of power from a shortstop since probably Johnny Peralta, and even probably Rennery a little bit before that. He did have that ugly start, 7 games in a row where he was hitless, dropped his batting average to below 100. But the past 8 games, he's really picked it up. He's got a hit in 7 of the last 8 games, and as Matt said, over 1,000 OPS the last 5. I think it's even over 1,200 if I remember right. So he's definitely a streaky hitter. Right now, he's hot. I think he'll be fine. If I don't like him being the 4 spot. I think if we can, like you said, once O'Neill comes back tomorrow, if he comes back tomorrow, eventually putting him in the 2 spot, and then sliding DeYoung down to the 5th spot, which moves Goldie and Arenado 3-4, however you want to kind of put them up there. But then again, Yadi's also been hitting the heck out of the ball too. So do you really want to move him down to the 6th spot? Do you keep him at 5, DeYoung 6? I don't know. There's a lot of things that I think that that they can play around with. Then you even got Carlson in there too, who, if we put O'Neill second, like I had suggested, that where do you put Carlson then? That's back down, probably lower in the order again. And I'm not a huge proponent of that, but
yeah, wouldn't mind. I don't think O'Neill's going to bat second. When I open this game, he's going to be batting second. I can make my own damn lineup, and I can be the manager if I want to. No, and I'm staying up late tonight. No one's going to tell me what to do. I think Carlson maybe being in the 5th spot is a good move, and DeYoung behind him at 6. I just don't think, I feel like O'Neill and DeYoung are both similar style players, as they both hit for power. They're both prone to the strikeout, and they both kind of chase the slider down and away a little bit. That's just the only reason I was thinking. And O'Neill is fast, so maybe getting him some pitches to hit. And I do like the fact of the chance that either one of them can hit a home run ball and change the complexion of the game, and they get streaky. I feel like O'Neill's the same way. He might have in 5 games, he might hit 3 home runs, and DeYoung's the same way. And then they might not do anything for 3 or 4 games. But you can't sandwich all those guys together. And we've got guys that are hitting well in the lineup, like Edman. Goldie's been serviceable. Arenado's been really well. Molina, who we'll get to in just a second, is tearing the cover off the ball. But we can't have those 4-5 guys all together and then have 4 guys, batting 200, because then it'll be Harrison Bader's fault again when he comes back. But yeah, Chris, what do you think so far coming into the year? We've kind of skipped over it. We've got some guys playing well, but let's go straight to the GOAT, Yadier Molina. He's just got his 2000s game with the Cardinals behind home plate as the catcher, the only catcher in history to do it with one team. But he's doing it on both sides of the ball. He's, trying to do the best he can with the pitching staff. I'm sure that it would be way worse if we didn't have him back there. And he's also handling the bat quite well.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked on other shows about how much he played during spring training, that it was like he didn't take any innings off then. And, coming into the season, we thought maybe have Kisner get a day a week. And, with Molina playing the way he has, there's really not been a need to. But Kisner did look good, yesterday with catching Martinez. And, he proves that he's a legit backup for Molina. But I don't think anybody thought Molina was going to have as hot of a start as what he's had. He's definitely surprised a lot of people. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he's already planning on coming back next year. I don't want to knock on wood and say that he's going to keep up these numbers, but he just doesn't age. And the guy, he's good at the plate, but also good at controlling the tempo of a game. And, even though there's been some not so great starts by the pitching, I don't think that's a knock on Molina per se.
Yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate guys that are 39 years old. For some reason, they become more attractive, better looking, still in great shape. I just happen to be 39 as well. So, I mean,
Then you turn 40 and look like me, and then it's all over with.
Well, that's whenever you should retire. That's,
Yeah.
Jay Bruce over there. Okay.
Right.
Matt, what are your thoughts so far on the season? Yachty, he looks like he's probably going to start asking for a contract extension in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
he's going
why
to put it on
not?
Instagram probably.
Yeah, he's made me feel like an idiot. Over the offseason, I was kind of leaning towards against it the longer it went on. But current OPS leader on the team, Yadier Molina. See how long that stays, but I think he's been great in the 4-hole. But the fact that he is the 4-hole kind of reveals kind of my biggest issue with how the lineup's constructed right now. Because for the past couple of years, you've had either that just one big bat in the lineup, or you've had the two, but one's not really hitting that well with Ozuna. And then you go get Arenado, and you still have a hole at cleanup. And I think the problem with batting Goldie and Arenado 2-3 is that it's kind of like eating your dessert first, where the best part of the meal is out of the way. And I love Yachty at cleanup, and he's been amazing, and he's looked like the perfect, name your best cleanup hitter in the league right now. He's been that guy so far, but he won't be forever. And when you put him at 5, or you move Carlson as 360 on base up to 2, that just sets the table better for Yachty at 5. So I've loved it. I have no idea how long it's gonna stay, just like nobody else does. But I mean, why not? If you're gonna sign him again, I would start to argue better trade Kisner though, because if he looks as good as he has looked, and if he's a starting caliber catcher, continuing to let him just sit there at now 26 is kind of a waste. I don't know if you guys want to transition over that or.
And no, that's a great point. And we kind of mentioned it before that it's unfortunate for him. He's the new Carson Kelly. He's only going to get playing time if he gets traded away, because at this point, Herrera has kind of already taken over as the heir apparent, it seems like, in the minor leagues. But you have to figure, if they're going to piece together a deal, at the midway point, if they're going to try to get better, leaving Kinsler just dangling out there and doing nothing is not helping the team at all. So, I mean, you have to figure, right, Brad, if Yachty's going to continue to play the way he is, maybe it's time to, like Matt said, trade Kinsler and just bank on the future with Herrera, even if it's another year. Maybe you get a stopgap for 1 year if you can't re-sign Molina, but Kinsler, his value is just totally deteriorating.
Yeah, and I mean, Yachty trains to play every game. So, I mean, Kisner isn't going to get a whole lot of playing time, but I agree with you. if he does get that little bit of playing time, proves that he's can hit the ball well and can be that reliable backstop. I mean, he's a good trade chip. I thought that immediately when the Cardinals re-signed Yachty this offseason. I thought Kisner was going to be traded at some point this offseason, especially in the Arenado deal. I thought he was going to be a part of that when it first came out that we were going to be acquiring him. But Ivan Herrera, he's going to be the heir apparent whenever Yachty decides to kind of hang him up. I could definitely see Yachty coming back next year. But if he doesn't, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I don't think Herrera is going to be ready next year. So like you said, that stopgap. Hopefully by that point, if Kisner's still here, he'll take it. But I fully expect him to be traded at some point prior to the deadline this year.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, especially this year whenever they got Sanchez from the Mets, because he's
Yep.
on our prospect list. And then he came in. I thought, oh, well, they're definitely going to, get rid of Kinsner.
Then Tyler Heineman too. We signed him this offseason as well. So I mean, you got Yachty, Kisner, Sanchez, and now Heineman. All could be the backup. So
yeah, Kinsler's not doing the Cardinals organization a good plan.
No.
Once a week, if that. And he has. And you're right, Matt. He has looked good. So it was a good transition. It was a good thing you brought that up. You see him being a Cardinal after the deadline, Matt?
I hope not. I love Andrew Kisner, but you say, can Ali Sanchez or Taylor Heineman do the same job as he has been playing once every 14 days? Yeah, probably. But he does offer a little more protection should Yachty get hurt. So I can see it from that side if they want to keep him. But
yeah, Chris, I was thinking best case scenario for Kinsner was going to be if the DH somehow came into play. You could see Yachty maybe take, especially with the way his bat has been, doing a couple of appearances at DH and Kinsler getting a little more playing time, but that hasn't happened. So, but you would be kind of shocked if Yachty keeps up his performance. Originally we thought, Yachty might come in not do as well, and you start to see more of a 70-30, 60-40 split back there, but it's 90-10, and as long as Yachty's performing, which he should be the guy back there. So what do you see happening there overall, Chris? If Yachty, he's probably not going to maintain what he has, but if he stays somewhat relatively good, he's productive, offensively and defensively, he's going to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a couple of things to think about is, heaven forbid Yachty get injured or something, whether it's something small, you've got Kisner then that can step up, and then you can have a Sanchez or Heineman, come up. But I agree, moving him would make sense, especially while he might have some value. We know from running the fantasy baseball league that just looking across the league, there's just not a whole lot of talented, productive catchers out there. So if a team can get a young guy that they can kind of groom to be their next catcher and come in immediately like Carson Kelly did with Arizona, I think it would make sense. I would imagine it would be a package deal. I think it would be Kisner and something else for really something that we need instead of just trading him for another prospect, a few years away. But I mean, he can say that he enjoys being Yachty's backup and learning from him. He's going to say all the right things, but that does have to weigh on his shoulders of, man, I don't have a spot. I mean, it's got to be tough to go out there. And even though you're learning from the GOAT, you're also kind of just watching, from the sideline. And, I think he wants that gig, but, if the Cardinals want to move on and kind of make a path for, Herrera when he comes up, I think it makes sense to move him this season.
Yeah, man. What do you say? He's 26, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
counting every day.
it's not old by any means, but for baseball terms, I mean, he's getting up there. With his credentials, he should be a starting catcher somewhere. With, we just saw it, Brad and Chris in our fantasy baseball league we're in, not to get on a big fantasy kick, but we have 16 teams. And after people drafted about 7 catchers, there's not much else out there. So he would definitely be in demand by somebody, just out Carson Kelly. And Kelly has been very serviceable and played well for Arizona which that's where I'm living at. And I was glad they beat the Reds today. So we need all the help we can get, apparently. So, Matt, where are you? Are you still in Alabama?
Yes, I graduate next Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Our
Oh, well,
last day of
congratulations.
today.
Yeah, congratulations, man. Auburn, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
only wear Auburn gear down here, so no Alabama gear.
Roll
I
Tide.
actually,
No.
I was gonna say, actually, funny story. I lived in Alabama for work for 2 years. I lived in Decatur,
Nice.
and
Fun.
other than Arizona, Alabama was the other place I lived where I really enjoyed it. And I used to make that trek, like you said, to watch when the Cardinals and Braves would come to when Cardinals kind of play the Braves. I would travel to Turner Field and watch them, and go to the pitchers or the whatever across the street. They had a different. There was like a bar over there.
I don't know. I was never able to go to Turner because they unveiled SunTrust my
I
fall
guess yeah,
of
it's been a
my
few years.
freshman year. Yeah, that was the first year they had SunTrust. But now
I used to love watching the games there. I used to get the outfield seats in the Cardinals bullpen. They would all sit basically on bleacher seats at Turner Field next to fans. So there was like a wall that was like I would always sit there. It was pretty cool. And Sidney Ponson signed a ball for me somewhere, but he was real great. So I'm glad I got that one. And I actually think he got in trouble because he did it during a game and he wasn't supposed to. But anyways, interesting fact that no one will care about.
Was he drunk?
Not this time. He wasn't fighting any judges or anything like that. So it was all good.
But as someone who grew up in St. Louis and went to Lafayette High School, not with Voight or Freese, but it's been a lot of fun to see a different fan base and just see how special it is to be a Cardinals fan. And you see a couple bad weeks and all of a sudden Truist gets a lot emptier. You start appreciating Busch Stadium a lot more.
Yeah, and we've talked about here, and I see that different places I've lived, and then here in Arizona, obviously, if the team's not doing well, it's pretty easy to go walk in and get a seat wherever you want. The fans are dedicated, but you have to deal with the good and the bad as we do at Cardinals Nation 24/7, and we appreciate every one of you.
Every one of them.
You're so
Right.
passionate, as Matt said earlier, a very passionate fan base.
It's a nice word.
Yeah, we're nice. Chris, what do you have? You have anything you want to throw out there?
I just, I know we touched on it earlier about, right now sitting in last place, but we've went over kind of where we predicted the Cardinals would finish. Is there really a lot of worry from you guys on seeing Cincinnati's bats be so hot? I know their pitching isn't as strong as most teams, and Milwaukee seems to have a pretty good combination of, Burns and, as far as their pitching, and then they've got some offense too. But Pittsburgh and the Cubs, I don't think give us much reason to worry. But do you think that's going to be a 3-team race in the division, or do you think the Cardinals are going to kind of fizzle here?
I mean, when I was on last time for the conversation with Nation, I mean, I did predict Cardinals to win the Central, but I also did say that the Brewers would be the most competitive to the Cardinals. And I mean, spearheaded by Brendan Woodruff and Corbin Burns. I mean, I have them both finishing in the top 3 of the Cy Young. I mean, Corbin Burns is looking just unhittable. I mean,
Never heard of her.
It's definitely going to be tough the rest of the year. What's that?
Never heard of her.
Right. But it's still early. I mean, we haven't even turned to May yet. I mean, if you want to think about slow starts, just look to 2019 when the end of May, Washington Nationals were one of the worst teams in baseball. I mean, they were closer to the worst team than being the best team. And, I mean, they ended up winning it all. So, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of concern there. But, I mean, I do think, like I said at the beginning of the show, if our starters can continue to get a little bit deeper in the games, that'll help our bullpen and get our guys healthy. With O'Neill coming back, Bader, Michaelis, and we can only go up from here, right?
Right. What say you, Matt? You think the Cardinals kind of have a lot of competition in the division, or you think we get it kind of right the ship and go on a run here and get hot and take the lead back?
Oh, of course. I mean, you can't have good storylines if it's not a competition. But I mean, I think the Brewers pitching, just like Brad was saying, is very scary for now. The Reds, it'll be interesting to see if their defense continues to shoot themselves in the foot like it did in 2020. I don't think the Eugenio Suarez at shortstop experiment's going very well, but Jonathan India's looked real nice. But I still think the Cardinals haven't really hit their stride. You still see Goldschmidt slumping. Arenado's been great, but he's still missing a lot of pitches where you see him super frustrated. And you've seen Goldie get frustrated after he strikes out or lines out or something that you don't really see from him. And I think when those two get going at the plate, that's going to help. And wasn't it 2019, either April or May? I think it was April, where the Cardinals had the worst month in the history of their franchise, and they still won the division.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I just love getting upset and riding the roller coaster because that's much better than what we were doing April of last year.
For sure.
You're so positive.
I think I'm disgustingly positive. Ask anyone else at Redbird Rants or anywhere else. I will forever be the optimist, or at least be the non-pessimist.
Now you're making me believe that we're first place. I feel like we're doing good now. I'm excited. All right, fine.
3 games back. I mean, I know we're tied with the Pirates, but
can you go live every day on our Facebook group and page and just kind of say the same, just repeat the same?
I was gonna say that's why I don't read the comments, is because I can't be this positive.
It's like,
We got the same record as the Braves. Look at that. If you
we don't read them either unless Facebook alerts us to community standard violations.
That's a daily thing.
Yeah.
The Yankees are 6-11 right now.
Yeah, Chris mentioned that last night.
They're spending a lot more
teams
money.
That are underperforming. Yeah.
A lot more money on the Yankees than there is for us.
And we talked about the beginning of the year too. You know, pitching. We had basically between we talked about Ponce. Other teams would like to have him as a 4 or 5 guy because we had all these arms, and pitching has been the tough part, which we knew with Kim being down and Mikolas, they were going to have to be creative. But at some point in time, my question next for you guys is, and this is not something we normally talk about, and I'll just circle it back. I'll go straight down to you, Matt. Circle gets the square. Is, we have all these prospects, right? And these guys with these young arms. I feel personally, just to stir the pot a little bit, that the Cardinals seem to wait a little too long with some of these guys. We hear, plus stuff from guys like Oviedo, and he looked really good last year, and then he's pretty much out of the conversation this year. And the whole Tommy Parsons thing, he was super effective in spring and said that he had some of the most pinpoint, control and accuracy, and he doesn't make the 40-man roster. But then they used the 40-man spot on someone like Hurst that has not performed in the minor leagues as far as with the bat offensively. And, that's when we need people that can hit, and Nagowski doesn't play. But I feel like we get these young prospect guys that look sharp, and we just wait a little too long. What are your thoughts on how the Cardinals actually, I know we get good players and we keep them, just like Kinsner and stuff, and just like Carson Kelly, but then I feel like we hold on to them a little too long, just like, I'm going to keep this question going, I guess, for 20 minutes, but, like Theo Rosarena and stuff, these guys that we don't give looks, not to say, because in real world, everybody doesn't pan out. You don't know what prospects are. And then you have certain guys you think are going to be good, they're not to nothing. But these are guys we hold on. They don't get much of an opportunity. We trade them. They play somewhere else. They do really well. What are your thoughts on the ways they're dealing with the young guys in the farm system? And, and that they said they were going to start taking other looks at that, but have they really?
Well, again, I only say that it's still a little early. So some of that's tough to read exactly. It's easier to look back and kind of dissect how they use people when you've had chances for injuries, but also, 2020 accelerated the clock for a lot of these guys just because of COVID and, what was it, the 17 debuts they had to call up. Because I think Oviedo had never pitched above single A. Liberatore has never pitched above single A. Gorman's never played above single A. And a lot of times there's not a ton of rush because with all the unknown and excitement that there is with, oh, well, this guy's hitting great at AAA. When that doesn't translate, you see players act and perform the way that Carlson did right when he got pulled up. And I'm not saying that he wasn't ready, but the way that he was able to take that 10-day snap, reset mentally, and come back, that speaks to how good of a prospect he is because he was able to dig himself out of that mental hole. I mean, especially if, God forbid, any of these players scroll through Twitter ever when they're playing bad. But I don't know. It's always interesting. I don't think there's a right answer. The only right answer is you pull somebody up and immediately they're great and they have very few struggles and then it's fine. But if you wait too long, you can always hope that they would be playing great if they were up, but you can never know for sure. So it's kind of like Schrodinger's prospect, if you want to say it like that.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't have any specifics because it's such a hard thing to judge, and I'm not watching everything that they're seeing at the alternate site, especially with the last 18 months with how weird things have been. I don't know. That's a really poor answer, but that's just the way I think about it. I don't know.
I mean, it's a good point. There's that's why we're having this conversation, because there's, equal, ways or different ways of looking at, different things. To me, I feel like here lately we've been waiting a little bit. And Chris, what are your thoughts? I know we called him Hurst, and to me, I just felt the Hurst thing kind of threw it all in perspective. I was kind of giving it a chance, not to just, trash on him or anything like that, but to use a 40-man spot on someone like him that's obviously not going to get any playing time. Whenever we pretty much thought at the end of getting, near toward the end of spring training that, they were going to move Hudson to the 60 and they were going to put Parsons on the 40-man because they were using him a lot and he was coming on with bases loaded and guys on. Even though it was spring training, those are the few match, guys like Carp and of that nature are going to make the team. But those guys, those last few roster spots, like, Parsons, et cetera, those are the guys trying to make the team. Nagowski, and even Sosa, making the team, over more often some of those other guys. You start looking at that and being like, okay, well, this guy's kind of earned his spot. And they don't, but then they turn around and put Hurst on the 40-man, who's probably not going to see much action. He wasn't in danger of being lost to another team. He hasn't hit well in the minor leagues. And I just feel like, when guys come in and they perform like an Oviedo, even from last year, and he's looked good in his one appearance this year, then you have a guy like Parsons or Nagowski, the Cardinals are seemingly wasting those opportunities to get those guys in action whenever we can use them in certain roles. If we had 5 starting pitchers and they all look really good right now and they don't have Parsons on the roster or Oviedo, I'm fine with that. Or if the team's hitting and Nagowski's not playing, I'm fine with that. But we have a need, and I feel like the Cardinals just play the weight game with too many of these guys, and they've done it for years with, and it's just come to light more because they've lost some pretty good stars, like Voit and Arozarena, who came out to be players, and it draws more emphasis. Not that I say that they shouldn't have traded those guys, because they did what they had to do, and we might have some potentially good people out of it, in the future. But Chris, your thoughts on the Cardinals and how they handle the minor league system, and do you think that still needs to be addressed and looked at differently?
Well, I think, every Cardinal fan, I think we get a little bit impatient. I think, the Cardinals have been known to hoard pitching. They value that so much. And, at the beginning of the year, we were talking about having a plethora of arms to choose from, whether it was, Oviedo, you've got Junior Fernandez, you've got guys like Seth Elledge and Woodford, and you've got Zach Thompson and Liberatore that are, a couple seasons away. But immediately trading the Rosarina and only getting Liberatore, fans want that instant gratification of that trade isn't worth it. Well, we don't know what Liberatore is going to be, and looking at the team next season, you don't know what Hudson will be when he comes back after his injury. Carlos, we don't know if he'll be back. I think the Cardinals are going to be in position next year where Carpenter is off the books, Andrew Miller's off the books. I think that's when the Cardinals really go out and make a play.
And Fowler money will be off the books as well.
Right. So I think that's when the Cardinals will make a splash, like a big name move. But with all these young arms, I mean, I would like to see somebody like a Liberatore or Zach Thompson come up but right now it doesn't make sense to have them come up with what we've got. Michaelis is going to be on his way back. It's kind of a logjam right now of arms that none of them are really blowing you away as like the ace, other than like Flaherty's looked pretty decent. But you just got so many arms that you don't want them to waste away and become like Kisner and come up when they're 27, 28 years old. When could we deal with the growing pains of calling them up at 21 and 22, even if they get roughed up, just to let them get that major league experience? I think that's kind of what's biting the Cardinals is we have that log jam and not giving them a fair shake. Even guys like Reyes that was hurt, they're talking about babying him only having like 100 innings this season. So if they're going to do that with somebody injured, they're going to do the same with these young guys that are inexperienced. So it's better to keep them down there. So it's kind of a win, lose type of thing with the young guys.
Yeah, and Brad and Chris brought up a good point too with, Reyes being hurt off and on, but he's healthy now. If he wasn't healthy, he wouldn't be cleared to play in these games. And he was a top prospect for years and years. Him and Tavares were the two top, guys that they talked about for a long time of how they were going to come out and perform and be the next big superstars. But he's healthy. So now you would think the Cardinals would want to throw him out there and see what they got. He's got the framework and the body to be a starter. He's been effective in the bullpen, but we have all these other bullpen guys. It just blows my mind that the Cardinals don't want to, thread the needle, put him out there for a couple starts or a few starts now that he is healthy and see what he can do. And if he's healthy and he comes out and performs and starts shutting teams down, well, then you might have something. And then you address it then. How are you feeling? How are things going? Or maybe you throw in a 6-man rotation because of that. And you might say, well, the 6-man rotation makes sense now, not because we need one, but we've got guys. Wayno's a little older. Reyes has had some injuries in the past. So maybe we throw out a spot starter or two for a bullpen guy. We have the taxi squad, which they don't take, good advantage of, in my opinion. We've already had Woodford and Whitley sent down. Once you send them down, you can call them up multiple times, and the taxi squad is traveling. You make a move. Say, okay, this is going to be a spot start game where Whitley, you're going to start Woodford, you're on its heels, or Cabrera, someone that can throw some innings. And we're going to give, Reyes a few starts and see how it goes. Do you think the Cardinals just wait too long and the star power is basically gone before they get him out there? Because I don't know if you guys are getting this, but I think they do.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Chris with the logjam issues.
No, we're going to edit that out and go back, start over.
What'd you say?
Like not even with the pitching, like he mentioned, but I mean, past few years, the hot thing has been we're deep with outfielders. I mean, we traded away obviously Rosarena, traded away Adolis Garcia, who is starting to hit the ball for the Texas Rangers this past week or so.
Yeah, which I don't mean to cut you off, but also I was going to pick him up, Chris. No, she picked him up yesterday, idiot.
He's been on my eye too. So
sorry, Brad. I just was pissed off about it. I wanted to get it off my chest.
I mean, we also traded away Grichuk. So I mean, that logjam is definitely a real thing. I mean, but at the same time, you also have to give to get. I mean, when we traded Luke Voigt, we didn't have a big need for him. I mean, that was just before we got Goldie. But I mean, when we played Voigt, he didn't really do that much. And plus, at that time, we needed that lefty in Chasen Shreve. And we got Gallegos out of it too. So, I mean, yeah, he's been raking over in Yankee Stadium, but yeah, we haven't heard too much about him this year from our fans because he's hurt. So, but once
you just wait till he comes back.
Oh, I know. I'm waiting for it.
You're going to hear it.
But like
we
with
need to get Matheny
Rosarena
back now. The Royals are doing well. So Matheny, the fans want him back. Did Gomber have a good relief appearance the other day, Chris? They're going to want him to be our ace in a minute.
Well, I was just listening to MLB Network Radio this afternoon, and there was a caller saying that we should have kept Gomber in the Arenado deal. I mean, you gotta, like I said, you got to give to get, and also at the same time, I mean, prospects are cool, but parades are cooler. I mean, that's what Casey Stern always says. I mean, yeah, the prospects are great, but at the same time, if you have the logjam like we have, try to trade them away for something that we really need at that time. So, I mean, I do think that they are really trying to kind of reassess how they do their trades because of the blowback from Arozarena and Voit. I mean, even Oscar Mercado, he had that great 2019, but he couldn't hit out of a wet brown paper bag last year. And I don't even think he
didn't make
on the big league team with the Indians this year. So, I mean, I do think they're going to try to kind of reassess where they're at, though.
Yeah, I think it was like last year, might have been last year, the end of the prior year. It's hard. I can't remember now with COVID. It seemed like it all ran together, but they were talking about the outfield, and Piscotty was doing well at the time. And they said, if you could have Grichuk and Pham and Piscotty back, would you? And it was McLaughlin. And I think it might've been, Horton. And they were like, oh yeah, I definitely would rather have, they both agreed they'd rather have the old outfield. And Grichuk has went on to play well, but sometimes change of scenery is big for some of these guys too, speaking of guys that are gone and back, and then we're going to try to wrap this up pretty soon. I don't want to keep you guys on here too long, but Matt, everybody was up in arms about Colton Wong, and you can't deny the kind of player he was for St. Louis. And he had an attachment, obviously, pretty hardcore to St. Louis. We all saw in his return before he got injured. But Tommy Edman has been performing quite well and has been more than serviceable and probably a little bit better than we thought he was going to be. We know he's not going to hurt us defensively, but his offensive numbers are definitely more consistent than what we're used to.
Yeah, he's the current B-War leader for the Cardinals, which I only say that because we had one of our writers, Dan Campbell, go on record before spring started that Edman was going to lead the 2021 Cardinals in WAR, which I laughed a lot at that. But, he's getting it done on both sides of the ball. He's made a few diving stops that you're like, wow, that looks a little familiar. It looks like what we've been seeing at second base for a couple of years. And it's too early to look at any of the defensive metrics and all that sort of stuff that who knows how well it really works defensively. But I haven't specifically missed, other than the familiar face and then great smile, haven't specifically missed in game Colton Wong yet, because Edman's getting on base. I think it was 340 right now. He's shown a little bit of power. He's got the speed. He's stealing. I don't know what happened in 2020, but Mike Schultz stopped giving the run signal. It looks like a good move right now to keep that $12 million. As heartbreaking as it was, and as much as we all love Colton Wong, looks like it's working out.
Yeah, it was sad to see him come back and have an emotional at bat. He's probably glad he got walked because he probably couldn't see too well when he came back. But we've been having that a lot lately. We've had, Ozuna and a lot of these guys, Wong, that want to come back to St. Louis, and the Cardinals just don't want anything to do with it, apparently. But Chris, your thoughts? I mean, Edman, you got to be surprised and happy with what we're seeing out of Edman. He goes out there and puts the work in and does a good job. And goes out. He plays ball the right way, I guess, the old traditional Cardinal style way. Maybe like you would see a David Eckstein or some of those guys play, or Scott Rowland. He goes out and has a good attitude and just does what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think with Edman, whether he's playing outfield or second base, he's basically your prototypical leadoff guy of what you want. Like we said on the flagship show on the last episode, that Danny Mac said he just hit his 162 game career, kind of put his numbers out there. And it is what you want to see from your leadoff guy. And he's putting up numbers that Wong wasn't giving us. Wong wasn't that guy putting him in leadoff that you felt that comfortable with. It did leave a little bit left to be desired, just knowing that we were losing a Gold Glover and Colton Wong. But until Edman comes back and gets that everyday second baseman spot, which I want that to happen, he is versatile. I just think sometimes that bites the Cardinals to have that utility guy because they use that to their advantage, but the player doesn't become as consistent. And I think that would help somebody like Paul DeYoung get that good, chemistry going with having Edman at second every day. But he's doing everything that you're asking of him, kind of like what Matt Carpenter used to do. But yeah, I like the guy. I think he's going to have a bright future in St. Louis, and for a lot less cost than Colton Long was going to.
Well, currently, less cost. Brad, your thoughts on Edman and his performance so far?
Yeah, I mean, when the news came out that they were declining Wong's option, I mean, yeah, I understood because of the whole money issue and just coming off the COVID year. I do think that in a normal season, they probably would have picked it up. But
yeah, some people even thought, myself and Chris, included, that they might try to rework a deal.
I thought so too. But I mean, it is what it is. Kind of sucks that he's with the rival Brewers now, but I didn't have a huge concern with transitioning from Wong to Edman because Edman had shown some flashes, especially at third base, when he played over there. I mean, he's got a good glove. He's made some pretty decent plays already this year, both in the outfield and at second. I mean, like you guys said, he's getting on base. He does the things that, I mean, you want a guy like him to do. I mean, right now he's getting on base at, I think it's like 340-ish clip right now, and I mean, so that's kind of what you're looking for from your leadoff guy.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I think he's got 3 stolen bases so far. I know he's got a few stolen bases, but it would be nice to see, kind of like how Matt's, I noticed it too. We weren't running much, but it would be nice to see guys, that's why, again, Tyler O'Neill's second. We've already started unwrapping it. I was doing it when Chris was talking because I hear his shit all the time there. He talks a lot. So I started wrapping it then, but just because of the fact that, Tyler O'Neill is sneakily one of the fastest guys in baseball. And I would like to see, give him a few chances to get on base in front of some of our bats and get some more speed out there. I'd definitely like to see us run more, or ball gets hit in the gap. Definitely have a chance to score some more runs, but that's all I had to cover for today. We've been on here for a little over an hour now. Chris, do you have anything you wanted to talk of before we?
No, I just want to thank both these guys for joining us tonight. I know everybody kind of has their own thoughts and worries and concerns with the team, and it's nice to get everybody's different takes at times. And, it is still early, and I know we could probably talk for hours and hours about different things we think that Schilt could do different or certain players could perform better. But, yeah, I think, it is too early to tell. I think the Cardinals have a good team, and I think they're going to have a lot hotter month of May than they have in April.
Yep. Brad, anything you want to say in closing? You want to give everyone a reminder where they can find you at?
Yeah. You guys can find me, myself, on Twitter at Brad Kehl, for Arch City Media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at Arch City Media. I mean, like I said, it's kind of too early to kind of hit the panic button just yet. I mean, just like we said earlier, like with the Nationals, they were one of the worst teams. They turned around, won the World Series in 2019. We had that historically awful beginning of the year in 2019 as well, and we ended up winning that division. So I think once we turn the calendar to June, if we're still kind of where we're at in the standings, then it might be a little cause for a concern, but still the Major League Baseball season is a marathon, not a sprint. So, I mean, it's a long season.
It's a long season. We can definitely make some ground back up with our series coming up against the Reds starting tomorrow. So hopefully they come out. And the Reds have been consistent with the bats and their pitching. And, they've got Sonny Gray and Wade Miley and Luis Castillo going up against us. So hopefully the Cardinals come out ready to go and they're a little more consistent. Pitchers can go deep. The bullpen becomes a little more defined in their roles, and the bats become a little more consistent totally. But Matt, we're going to go into the bullpen here, going to you. You're closing it out. Why don't you remind everybody where they can find you and give us your closing thoughts if you have any, sir?
Yeah, it's redbirdrants.com and then at FS Redbird Rants on Twitter. And then my personal is at Maddie_ice99, nice and slick. And then, yeah, I don't think I could say it any better than Chris did. It's still early. Just glad
Both of you guys
to
are
ride the
all
roller coaster. As much as I can try and stay disconnected, you just can't. And it's too much fun. I'd much rather see people complaining and writing all their wonderful comments about on-field stuff than negotiations between players and owners. So just happy baseball's on.
Yeah, and they've already started the collective bargaining agreement talks, which is good news.
Great to hear.
Which is good news. And then the minor league season for all the major Cardinals affiliates is going to start on May the 4th. So that's also good news. And I said the end of April, bottom of the thing, but we still have a week left. So I'm trying to get ahead of myself. So hopefully the Cardinals can rebound and finish out these last 5 games before the end of the month and can get back above the 500 mark. And that's what counts. But yeah, thanks again to Brad for joining us. Art City Media, Cardinals Nation 24/7. Matt from Redbird Rants, we appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully we can have you on again soon, and maybe you can help Russ with his technical difficulties. And then my good friend and partner in crime, Chris Lawless. So for all of us, thanks for joining in and watching. And we hope you like and subscribe. Check everybody out. And go Cards.
Go Cards.
Go Cardinals.
Go Cards.